Welcome once again to Auto Mondial, the weekly home of all the latest motoring news and reviews. This week we mourn the loss of one of the UK's favourite hatchbacks, but it's not all sad as the Focus gets a special send-off.
We've also got yet another Volvo SUV, this time reviving the XC70 name.
Plus, after 50 years on the market, the Volkswagen Polo is about to get a new lease of life.
That's all coming up, but first though, the news.
Much of 2025 has been marred by Stellantis recalls concerning faulty Takata airbags, and the issues don't seem to be ending as now Citroën's list of affected models has grown further. In the French manufacturer's original recall, Citroën C3 and C4 models, part of the 2010 launch, as well as DS3, 4 and 5s from the same period, were ordered off the road until they could be fixed. The manufacturer's parent company has now added later iterations of the C4, C0, DS4, DS5 from between 2010 and 2017. Several Peugeot models are also affected by the airbag fault, and so to help cope with demand, Peugeot garages are also performing the work required. This isn't the only recall Stellantis is dealing with in 2025, as the PureTech petrol engine that powers entry-level models like the Vauxhall Corsa and Peugeot 208 is at elevated risk of fuel leaks. If you believe your car is affected by either recall, make sure to get in touch with your local Stellantis garage as soon as possible.
First unveiled in 2023, the Volkswagen ID.2 is the latest concept car to join the German auto giant's flock of all-electric vehicles. A compact city car both set to replace the current Polo and sit below the popular ID.3. Ever since its launch, have we thought this to be a particularly charming little model. But a little over 2.5 years since first seeing the light of day, the concept car is now readying its production debut, and Volkswagen has lifted the covers on its newest form.
This is a new life, a new day.
A more mature look, this newest evolution of the ID.2 is no longer the ID.2 at all. Dropping the numeric naming conventions VW has adopted for its battery electric vehicles until now, the latest EV to hit the inner city will in fact be called the ID.POLO. Yes, the name that this year celebrates 50 years since hitting the market will soon be transitioning to a zero-emission mindset. In fact, this latest move commences a change in naming strategy within the Volkswagen range, as other recognisable names will soon make their way to electric models. So you never know, at some point you might well see an ID Touareg, ID Passat or even an ID Golf. It isn't just with its generic model names that Volkswagen is changing its conventions. In recent years, sporty variants of all-electric cars have opted not to adopt the famous GTI boot-lid badge and are instead called GTX variants. Well, that is also set to come to an end, as this second concept shows. A pre-production ID.POLO GTI, this will be the first all-electric Volkswagen to wear the GTI badge. Under its funky camouflage, you can just about make out a more aggressive lip, hotter wheels, and a bit more of a diffuser.
This is a new life.
Both the ID.POLO and ID.POLO GTI make their production debuts in 2026. But before all of that, make sure to stay tuned to Auto Mondial in the coming weeks for a special celebration of the Polo's 50th birthday.
It has happened. The SUV is well and truly the go-to family car for the 21st century. How do we know that? Well, a few months ago, Volvo, a manufacturer previously all about the estate wagon, announced that its previous all-time best-selling car, the 240, had been overtaken by its mid-range SUV, the XC60. Taking that information on board, it seems the Swedish manufacturer is now going even harder into SUV dominance, having launched yet another high-riding tower block on wheels. This time it's the XC70, which essentially takes the size of the now best-selling Volvo ever made, but gives it the high-end tech, sharper looks and luxurious comfort of the range-topping XC90. But it isn't quite as simple as what the XC70 looks like from the outside. What really sets this new car apart from its stablemates is its powertrain. As the manufacturer calls it, this is an extended range plug-in hybrid. Under the bonnet lies a 1.5-litre four-pot, but truly at the core of this model's power supply is a 39.6 kilowatt-hour battery, good for up to 120 miles on a charge. Combined, the system will hit 750 miles between pit stops and pumps out over 460 brake horsepower. A less powerful model with a 21 kilowatt-hour battery gets 320 brake to the front wheels, and a more traditional 4 PHEV tech 70 miles on a charge. As we said earlier, the XC70 is something of a halfway house between the 60 and 90 series models, taking the smaller car's dimensions and pairing them with more luxury. That is certainly true inside, where a typical minimalist cabin gets plenty of light thanks to a large sunroof and large windows. As a model designed for China, rear legroom is a priority, as is tech up front, from a barrage of screens to enormous heads-up display and absolutely no buttons. Yes, you did hear that right. Currently, Volvo is focusing this new car on the Chinese market, but has said that a European launch is in the works. Pre-orders are currently open for the equivalent of £46,000, though with import duties and additional homologation costs, we'd expect that figure to climb into the mid-50s when it launches in the UK. Not that we think that's going to happen anytime soon.
Sadly, British roads aren't exactly awash with long-range PHEVs, but if you're happy to concede on electric-only mileage, the market does have a good number of plush options, one of which would be the Range Rover Sport. In entry-level P460e specification, you get a 3-litre straight-six paired to a 32 kilowatt-hour battery, powering an additional electric motor. Together, that all makes for 76 miles of EV-only range and 460 brake horsepower. A more powerful P550e is also available, but taking the regular car's specs and simply fettling power output to 550 brake horsepower, we wouldn't say it's really worth your time nor your money, especially given the standard car already costs a whopping £90,000. For that money, and as you would expect from something sporting the Range Rover badge, you get a cabin full of the nicest materials. This particular car is the autobiography trim level, but even in basic SE form, you'll get leather and aluminium trim throughout. From its thicker, more decorated dashboard to padded seats and greater attention to detail for the most part, the space does feel more bolstered and therefore tighter than aboard the Volvo. Rear legroom in particular is less welcoming than the China-centric XC70, whilst boot space is comparable between the two. There are so many plug-in hybrid SUV offering a tinge of plushness on the market today, and so the Range Rover is far from your only option should you want to get your hands on something XC70-esque. But this range has to be among the most attractive, should you afford it.
After the break, are a Nismo badge and a new paint job enough to warrant a $30,000 upmark?
Welcome back. Coming up, we send the Ford Focus into the sunset, but not before checking out a very special farewell edition.
Nismo. One word, 5 letters, coming together to highlight only the fastest and most powerful of Nissan products. Usually you'll find these 5 letters short for Nissan Motorsport on the doorsills of the likes of the GTR supercar and fun-loving Z sports cars, but there's plenty more space for badges and SUVs, aren't there? This is the Nissan Armada in Nismo form, and where the regular model is a 7-seat SUV perfect for tackling a bit of mud, this near range topper gets all the trimmings for a lower riding, sportified family runabout that wouldn't be out of place on a canyon road. Visually, the Armada Nismo gets all the hallmarks of a high-performance Nissan. That is, as long as you are open to calling a school bus sporty. It gets this two-tone grey and black paint job that has long been a synonym with the Nismo name, as well as plenty of red accents around the grille and bumpers. Speaking of the bumpers, this model gets tweaked bodywork on all 4 sides. A reworked front grille and bumper are supposedly aerodynamic improvements, whilst a rear wing and diffuser should help the Armada stick to the ground when you stretch its legs. In all honesty, it doesn't have particularly impressive legs to stretch, though as under the bonnet lies the same 3.5-litre V6 that powers every other Armada in the 2026 model year. A minor tune-up by Nismo means a 35 brake horsepower boost over other versions to 460 brake, whilst a recomposed exhaust might make for some more burbles when stationary. Nissan claims its hot SUV looks fast even when standing still. Well, we would suggest it only looks fast when standing still. Give it a bit of steering angle at speed and we can only imagine the amount of body roll, understeer and tyre screech this 2.7-tonne Colossus will produce, despite some suspension work from Nissan's motorsport team. If you want a capable SUV large enough for 7, the Armada is a very good offering in class, hitting the US market from $59,000. If you want a sporty Nissan, however, in our opinion, there are so many better options than this 80 grand lump.
Earlier on in the show, Volkswagen unveiled new plans for the Polo name, including a switch to EV tech. Well, the little German city car will be diving into an increasingly contested market when it makes its production launch next year, as the compact EV space is full of top choices. One of the most recent is the Kia EV4 that the South Korean manufacturer launched this year at its EV Days. Whilst the more traditional hatchback variant has been on sale for a few months now, the little electric family car is also soon to become available in sloped roof fastback form. In fact, with pricing and pre-orders announced in the summer, deliveries of the extended model are set to begin in just a few weeks' time. But is it worth the circa £1,500 increase over its hatch sibling? Well, off the bat, the two are obviously very similar visually. Identical from the front, this fastback body shape clearly adds a bit of an overhang to the rear end, all while giving the car a sleeker tail, which also improves aerodynamic drag and range. In fact, it gains a small but not insignificant 18 miles of range over the hatch, though if you want the longest range EV4, the fastback is not available in hyper-efficient air form. Instead, you can only get this body style with the more eccentric GT line body style, getting a few more kicks and flicks, as well as larger wheels, more weight translating to a few lost miles of range. Under the shell, an 81 kilowatt-hour battery powers a single 201 brake horsepower motor and 380 miles on a charge. Inside, the additional 300mm on the rear end may not mean much for passenger legroom, but it does make for a significantly larger boot. Moreover, with the GT line trim level, you get all the standard fitment you would expect of a range topper in what is already a well-equipped car from the get-go. A model mostly designed for other markets like the US, given Brits' penchant for a hatch, it's nice to have the option here in the UK. But what models will the Kia EV4 Fastback be going up against when it hits our shores?
If you're looking for a slick roofline on a low-riding compact, we're afraid to say that your options are rather slim. There are plenty of coupe SUVs, there are plenty of compact hatches, but few combinations of the two. One of your only options, in fact, is the Polestar 2, which last year went through quite the mechanical refresh. And a sleek, attractive saloon looks, additional battery capacity, along with a more efficient motor design, ups maximum range by over 50 miles to a whopping 395 miles, some 15 more than its incoming rival. In dual motor form, 368 miles is what you can expect from a full battery, which is still close to the Kia despite getting all-wheel drive and more power. Power also gets a healthy bump to just under 270 brake horsepower and an astonishing 470 for the most powerful all-wheel drive performance pack. So a more powerful, more endurant model of Swedish interior design, the Polestar 2 does, on paper at least, seem like the nicer prospect of the two. However, there is a price to pay, and that would be an extra £5,000 on top of the Kia's $41,000 starting price when it does finally hit our shores. So perhaps patience is a virtue after all.
In 2025, the automotive industry is facing a tough choice. With over 100 years of history behind us, but a power revolution in full swing, heritage is either being put on the chopping block or in the spotlight. The Volkswagen Polo may now be 50 years old. The manufacturer is rejuvenating the name for the electric age as it becomes the ID.POLO. But taking names associated with internal combustion and injecting them with modern EV tech is not something everyone is doing. It isn't even the norm, as it turns out. One manufacturer dealing with this difficult decision is Ford, as where some long-standing names like the Mustang, Capri and Puma are all making their way into the new dawn of the car industry, that is not a fate shared with other monikers. At the end of this year, the Blue Oval will discontinue the Focus without a replacement, and so for the time being at least, the name will fall to the wayside. First launched in 1998, the Focus name has been through 4 generations of friendly, family ferrying Fords, with the odd hatch thrown in for good measure. And all that history culminated in this, the facelifted 4th-generation Ford Focus in its hottest ever ST edition. The ultimate fast forward? We're not quite sure considering the history, but what we do know is this: it's an epic send-off for the Focus as we know it. Taking the standard 5-door and giving it a far meaner look with the simple yet effective 19-inch wheels, custom azure blue paint and several black details, the ST is an aggressive little pocket rocket, but in ST edition form, it becomes an out-and-out jet fighter.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
In fact, that bark is backed up by a lot of bite. Under the bonnet, a 2.3-litre turbocharged 4-cylinder has been pumped up to 280 brake horsepower, all of which go to the front wheels via a 6-speed manual gearbox. It's a proper return to form for the hot hatch that has lost its way in recent years, what with 500 brake all-wheel drive supercar rivals in hatchback disguise. Despite its modest specifications sheet, 5.7 seconds will see you hit 62 from standstill, and the Focus ST edition will top out at 155, all you need for a B-road blast. It's not just out of the blocks that this final hot focus will widen your eyes. Uprated Brembo front brakes provide the stopping power, whilst a fully adjustable suspension setup enhances mid-corner grip. A set of KW coilovers are supposedly 50% stiffer than the regular Focus ST, whilst the dampers have 16 different rebound settings. The car sits 10mm lower than previous, as standard, and should you want an even more butch look, a few turns of a spanner will drop it a further 20mm. There is no denying we are sad to see the Focus name fade into the sunset, but we are also glad it ended its reign of the UK B-Road in the same way it began, belting the song of a buzzy engine as its driver obnoxiously piles through the British countryside.
Next time on Auto Mondial, all we know about customers of Ferrari's latest release is that they live on a boat. It's the return of the Testarossa.